philosopher who expects money for scribbling is a fraud. Little can match the thrill of stumbling on new ideas. Of course, it's likely to be pleasant to have money come your way, but letting that ambition cause new ideas to shun you marks the death of curiosity, a saving grace. I dedicated my time to what seems like an outrageously quixotic adventure. These 350 pages are all that I have, with little otherwise left. It is strange and wonderful that luck indulged me to the extent that nothing stopped 60 years of asking why. In the transcript text is a picture of the 4 essays which I have done in my lifetime. One is entitled A Short Book on Long Words, A Unified Theory of Society. The next one, The New Information Landscape, which is actually the source of the third, Corporate Power. And the fourth is entitled Contradiction, which was written only a few years ago. Aside from material wealth, a great cost to most philosophers is loneliness. The more radical and encompassing their work, the further they are from plain song. Descant and counterpoint are tolerable and can greatly contribute. But dissonance is not. Conformity to contradiction is necessary. A harmonious society is unhappy with those who ask too many questions, in case the boat is rocked sufficiently to take on water and sink. A poorly matched rower, determined to pull as hard as possible in the most efficient style, while the rest of the crew, well matched but not so competent, can easily ruin everything. Part of growing up calls for respect for society and, although usually intuitive acceptance of the inconsistent, contradictory, the former assumes a process, the latter stands changeless, and incoherent entities within. A philosopher, not an academic, is like a member of the awkward squad, running amok in society, constantly questioning its key entities. He is a menace, as if setting a sledgehammer to chip away pillars of a temple, insulting its ghosts, mocking the common faith that binds people together to make sense out of a physical world devoid of reason or humanity. Members of the awkward squad, going so far off the rails, can be seen only as good from the enemy's point of view, intent on social destruction and physical enslavement. Socrates paid the price. Plato knew, in apostrophes, better to become the arch-apologist for the establishment of the time. Later his philosophy was repeatedly regurgitated, a polite word for vomited, to justify authoritarian political systems and attitudes to the present day. He concocted what looks like a logical view of society. The Republic contains political aspects such as eugenics, a caste system, and the horror of assuming knowledge confers moral superiority as a cornerstone prescription of a consistent society. But society is vastly more sophisticated than a logical construct. Strictly, logic is a closed system that we can only use and appreciate by according at least temporary meaning to a meaningless word. Contradiction must be rescued from self-destruction by breaking the law of non-contradiction, enabling us to use and understand logic. But Plato did all the clever work. Anyone in his Republic would have no need or reason to reason, so emotion, essential to humanity, is bypassed and made irrelevant. Thus the first paradox of reason would be redundant. Reason can't exist without emotion. There must be a reason to reason. yet reasoning must deny participation of what it needs to exist. The second paradox is as follows. Most information and sensation go to memory is not tested by logic, trying with freeze thought. Unconscious memory, likewise the intersubjective, is home to non-logic. To be reasonable, you must be unreasonable. The need to be unreasonable would be irrelevant, because a wonderful axiomatic closed system philosophy has all the answers, eliminating a need for reasoning about politics, morality and society. Simply, if being reasonable is unnecessary, non-logic evaporates. The third paradox becomes irrelevant because logic done, contradiction is banished. The nature of society allowing for incoherent, contradictory entities, its nature and rules of existence are ignored, usurped by wrong-headed invasion of the rules of physical existence into a domain where they have no right and cannot apply. Rules that determine physical things are not the same as those that determine social or intersubjective things. In a drive to make society logical, Plato claims all truth is accessible to those who see the forms. The clever philosophers who escape the cave, where reality is only seen as flickering shadows on the wall lit by a fire, will guide the lumpen masses to the nature of absolute truth. Then, what need to worry about uncertainty, or that it's impossible to know everything, including the future? His arrogance was Olympian, and the establishment of the day lapped it up. If justice were to prevail, the wrong philosopher was forced to drink hemlock. The extent the human world is unwilling or incapable of understanding the substance of the paradoxes of reason is a measure of how close we are to the wrong end of the political spectrum between democracy and inhumanity. Clinging to the left-right authoritarian spectrum invented in a sometime royal tennis court of the late 18th century Paris is a pathetic and dangerous delusion. The choice is between making the best of society and those who want to usurp it by authoritarian dictate, using appeal to logic while denying contradiction as a Trojan horse. A minnow? Am I as arrogant? Then, if liars and hypocrites can speak the truth, perhaps I am. Thank you for listening. This one started off in a very sort of self-centered way, mentioning the 4 essays. Strictly speaking, it's 3, because the second and third, as the new information landscape and the essay on corporate power, really are one, but from very different perspectives. Corporate power is a rewrite, and in some ways it's not as good as the original, and very different in spirit. But the two together, it should be treated as one. In total, it's about 350 pages, and it's taken me 50 years to write those. So I think there's some sense in them, particularly the final one, contradiction. We suffer from not understanding how important contradiction is and understanding its meaning, and how, because we grasp that, we're able to reason. It's not as if I'm trying to invent some kind of dialectic or other. Far from it. I'm actually freezing it. So rather than this synthesis of thesis and antithesis, blah, 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 I'm saying no, just accept that there are many entities that are unresolved, that have contradiction and incoherence built into them of their very nature. We get a bit of this with language. One of the strengths of language is it enables us to speak and referred to abstractions, to speak of things which we can't imagine, but which exist in the intersubjective on very different terms to things that exist in the real world. Language, in a way, liberates people to be able to talk about society, and that's hugely important. I think society existed as long as human beings have, if not before. But when we could start talking about society with the help of language, giving us the ability to talk about things we can't, strictly speaking, imagine, abstractions, then I think humanity managed to develop political systems that have got us here. And language, in effect, began to snowball and develop on its own terms. To a certain extent, it does have a huge influence in the way we think. But essentially, its foundations are based on shared physiology and brain structure, and not on the absolute relativism of Wittgenstein and all the moderns, which seemed wrapped up in the idea that language is the be-all and end-all. It's not. It does hugely influence us, but it's a product of humanity, and it's a tool, and tools are not what they make. So again, as in most things, if you take what you can from one particular point of view, another one, and combine them, and you see the best, you seek the meaning in all of them, and then try and combine to get something more sensible, that is the way to go. And not these futile academic arguments, like, for instance, the argument between phonetics and whole word, and how you should teach children language. It's bullshit to say it's either or in an exclusive sense, because each has a lot of truth in it. And the problem why it's either or is because one is ideological, very much more strongly than the other one. And ideologues don't agree if there's the slightest thing different. So the philosophical foundations of whole word, which are rooted in sort of quasi-Platonic beliefs, the educare we draw out, as if we've got a whole world of forms inside us, and all you need is to draw it out through creativity. And the idea of rote learning, of course, stops that process, which is appalling to them. For a phonetics teacher, they don't have that view. So it's a fundamental disagreement is on the philosophical level, which is rarely spoken about. The educare belief is quite primitive. The idea that somehow you're born with a whole world of information and knowledge, as it were, pre-programmed in you, is really quite strange, to say the least. But they do believe it. And highly intelligent, educated people believe it, almost to a religious emphasis, a creed. And so it creates this sort of unnecessary either or, in this case between phonetics and whole word, which you don't need. It blocks the process of constructive learning, and seek the meaning is on the way, is one of its major victims. It frustrates me enormously, particularly as a child. I was taught both methods, which caused even greater confusion, starting with phonetics and then having a whole word flung at me. No wonder I became a philosopher. Half of my life has been based on the word why, and then occasionally WTF. But I've got there now. Now I'm happy. I've solved the problems, as far as I'm concerned. It's interesting to say, but I'm much happier with things and less confused and quizzical about the ways of the world than I ever was before. It's getting better all the time. So there you go. Again, thanks for listening. And I apologise for my rather sort of personal bit at the beginning. Fortunately, as I developed, it dragged me down to something much more interesting. Bye for now.